Hello Ghosts and Ghouls, long time no see, it's your boy SunderlandSpook here, ready to spit some shit straight off the dome, unscripted, let's fucking go. I don't know why I sound so excited considering the subject matter that I'm kind of talking about, or more appropriate, or more accurate actually, rambling about, is all of the Silent Hill leaks that have come out recently over the past couple of days. I know I'm a bit late to this whole thing, but I've had to record this a few times. I just got out of hospital, so I'm still recovering, and I have to pick very specific times when I'm feeling okay to record. So right now I'm feeling a bit okay, so I think I can, make sense. Because the last recording I made, I don't think I made any goddamn sense, so I thought let's try again. So this video here is just going to be me going through all these supposed Silent Hill leaks that have just come out. Now these come from Dusk Golem over on Twitter. He's quite, famous for being a leaker, I guess, of information regarding games like Silent Hill and Resident Evil, and also just generally a fucking cool dude. And I, thankfully, through doing all this YouTube stuff, I've actually had the chance to, get to know him and everything like that. So I trust him when it comes to these leaks, because they tend to be either on the money or close to. And yeah, he kind of just dropped some fucking bombshells out of nowhere regarding 3 separate Silent Hill games. And if you follow me over on Twitter at SunderlandSpook, you would know that I've been rambling about all these leaks, and I have so many fucking opinions, and it's just in my head. So I thought, what better way to just get it all out and vomit it onto a video and give me some catharsis, because I just need to bitch and moan about all this shit. This is going to be a negative video mostly because I'm not very keen on the leaks so far, but I'm very, very interested to hear what you guys have to say as well, because I really want to know what your opinions are on all these leaks. And at the end of the video, I'm even going to fucking rank them for some reason, from what I'm most keen for to what I'm not most keen for. And yeah, so there are 3 leaks. The first one is Bloober Team apparently remaking Silent Hill 2. The second is a smaller Silent Hill project that's possibly coming out that's going to be episodic, and each episode is going to be a short story. And the last one is an entirely new Silent Hill. But in terms of new Silent Hill, we'll get into it more once we talk about that one in particular. It doesn't sound as, great as you think it is. Alright, so I thought I'd start with Bloober Team remaking Silent Hill 2. Again, if you follow me on Twitter or if you've watched some of my videos, you might have picked up that I'm not a fan of Bloober Team whatsoever. Nothing against the people, in the individuals themselves, they're all fucking really talented, and I can't, making games is bullshit complicated, so anyone that can do that shit is, fucking amazing. So this isn't coming from a place of hating the people who work there, but just more so coming from a place of what they've released. But before we get into all that, we'll first talk about we'll give a bit of setup for what happened with these leaks. So a while ago, Bloober Team CEO said the team were working on an existing horror IP from, quote, a very famous gaming publisher, end quote. And later on, I'm not entirely sure when, but it was obviously a few months later, Bloober announced a, quote, strategic cooperation agreement, end quote, with Konami. That relationship seems to be going pretty good, considering that they've worked with Akira Yamaoka on the Medium soundtrack. Obviously, it doesn't matter really. Yamaoka isn't tied to Konami. He can do whatever the fuck he wants, but that relationship's kind of there. And when these leaks came out, it kind of further confirmed the idea that, yeah, Bloober Team are definitely working on a Silent Hill game. I just didn't think it was going to be remaking Silent Hill 2. So I'll break us down to 2 separate things. I'll first talk about, generally my opinions on Bloober Team, and then secondly, Silent Hill 2, the remake. I'm not a fan of Bloober Team's games whatsoever. I honestly have played Layers of Fear, Observer, and Blair Witch, and each of them I really didn't like. Blair Witch especially, I really fucking hated, because that's coming from a place of I'm a massive fan of the Blair Witch Project, and I love the lore and all that shit. That was the shit I grew up on, was watching Blair Witch and reading up on all the shit and watching the documentary series and stuff. And I was really fucking excited when they announced they were working on this game, even though I still had my hesitations because it was a Bloober Team, but I got it and it was a fucking massive disappointment. I was planning on reviewing it at some point, way back when the channel first started, but just shit got out of, stuff happens and it just never came to fruition. I do plan on covering it though at some point. But yeah, I just don't really dig the style of horror that Bloober Team kind of creates. It's that very walking sim kind of shit, like, you know, that plagued like PC horror gaming ever since like Amnesia came out, even though Amnesia has a lot more in terms of gameplay going on. That style of game where it's you just walking through hallways, basically, in environments, and things go boo, and you're like, oh my god, and then that keeps happening over and over again till the credits roll. Not a really big fan of it. I just don't like, if it's telling a compelling story, which in my opinion that Bloober Team has never really done, then I'm all for it. But I just, you know, when the stories and everything like that is so bare bones basic horror shit, and then the gameplay is fucking boring, it's like, in my opinion, the most just unimportant, boring horror games. And Bloober Team seems to be very good at making the exact horror games I don't like. And that's not even getting into the whole thing about how they actually handle, you know, touchy subject matter. I haven't played the medium yet, but I have heard a lot of things about, you know, how they've handled certain darker aspects of that story. And Blair Witch also tried to do it, but that game was like a fucking trauma marathon. It's like, I've never seen a main character have so many goddamn traumas. So I'm not a really big fan of Bloober Team's games per se. I just really think that they are boring, and I really think that the stories they tell tend to be very face value, very just messy and not really interesting, and seems like they include shit like, you know, with like trauma or certain things just to do the whole, it's scary because we've included it, look how scary this is, isn't it fucked up that people are fucked up? And it's just shit. So not a big fan of Bloober. And so them remaking Silent Hill 2 baffles me because of many different reasons, but I guess like the first reason is it doesn't need to be fucking remade whatsoever. That game visually still holds the hell up. Gameplay wise, sure, there are some aspects of it like, you know, tank controls and the combat and shit that you could quote unquote improve, but it's not necessary. It doesn't take away from the experience whatsoever. I don't know if this is just like what people say to excuse that type of gameplay, but it does make you feel like an everyman, you know? You're not the fucking best at doing killing monsters and shit like that. So I don't see any part of Silent Hill 2 that needs to be remade, you know? Like, I guess the only thing you could say is like, oh, maybe you could improve the visuals, but I don't think the visuals have fucking, you know, aged at all. They're like fine wine. They're beautiful. And so the idea of just remaking that game really feels like Konami doing the whole, well, Capcom remade Resident Evil 2 and 3, like obviously Resident Evil 1 as well, but you know, the recent games, and look how successful they were. And, you know, and I get it, remasters and all that, remakes are fucking popular, but those games, the originals, did age more so. Like, I personally don't think so. Like, I replayed them, you know, I played them for the first time for the channel and I fucking loved them. And I don't think that gameplay wise they've aged at all. I reckon they're really, really good. But I do see from the business side of things why you would want to remake Silent Hill to evolve them, because, you know, it is the horror game basically, so it kind of makes sense, but I just don't fucking like it. And then when we get into the leaks about exactly what they'll be doing to it, some things kind of concern me. So obvious ones are like reworked AI and animations. They already be done, which makes, you know, sense. That's kind of bog standard shit. Puzzles getting remade and reworked, it kind of worries me a little bit because of how intrinsically tied so many parts of that game are to James Sunderland and his story and the story of the other characters in Silent Hill 2's, you know, story as a whole. So anything that would be changed or reworked would need to be fucking like delicately kind of shit, you know? Because as soon as you fuck up one part of that, you're really fucking up that aspect of that puzzle that is part of James's psyche or personality, whatever the hell. The last part that kind of grossed me out a lot is there's apparently going to be several new endings. Now that automatically goes from remake or remaster to complete changing such a pivotal moments of the story, especially, kind of grosses me out a little bit. Just the audacity to think that you could improve the endings of that game. I think all the endings are wonderful. My personal favorite's In Water, but it's kind of sounds insulting, really, you know, like this piece of art that was created by all these talented people, and you're coming in and going, nah, fuck that, we can make it better, we can do this differently. And it just kind of like really fucking disrespectful to everyone that worked on the original game, and also the fans themselves who have grown so attached to that game. It is disgusting kind of, I don't know, disgusting is a strong word. Gross. It's very gross, and I'm not a whole big fan of the idea of changing that much. But honestly, in my opinion, I don't think any of the Silent Hills should be remade. Not the original, none of them. I reckon all they need to do is fucking port them onto new systems. Like, obviously the HD remasters are a prime example of Konami even fucking that up, so I don't know how I have any faith that they're going to actually make Silent Hill 2 Remake a good game. But if we could get ports of those games given to teams like Bluepoint, who did like the Demon's Soul remake, and like they already have a relationship with Konami because they did the Metal Gear Solid remasters. Give it to them and just put these 3 games, or 4, or all of them in a fucking package, throw them up on the market. They would sell like hotcakes, and you don't need to remake them because visually I think all of them hold up. Even Silent Hill 1, I believe that the PS1 aesthetic of that game really lends to the atmosphere, and plus we wouldn't even have fog if it wasn't for the limitations of the PS1 and how creative that team got to get, you know, Silent Hill being Silent Hill. Like, we wouldn't know it as it is without the limitations of the PlayStation 1 in the first place. So bring in all these games, just give them a nice coat of paint. You don't even have to give them a nice coat of paint, just fucking port them, put them in a bundle, throw them onto newer systems. They haven't aged badly. The resurgence of survival horror games, like old school kind of stuff, like for example games developed by created by Puppet Combo, show there is a market for people who love that old school survival horror that we just aren't getting, because all we're getting really from big publishers and big developers are those fucking walking sim goddamn fucking horror games. So porting them over, you know, could bring in new fans. You know, you've got these fantastic games, and like, even though like some of them are a bit hit and miss in terms of like aspects of them, they're all fucking, you know, I love them all, even warts and all. And you could get so many new fans and, you know, really revitalize the franchise if you just gave people the ability to actually fucking play them. You don't need to remake them. We can just go with the fact that we've got these classic games, let's put them in a bundle, let's sell them. As well with Bloober, as I mentioned before, that they're not really, they make games like, as I call, walking sim horror games, and they're not really known for gameplay. The Blair Witch kind of had some combat, even though it was fucking, I'll get into that when I do the review. And I haven't, as I said, I haven't played the medium, but there is gameplay, I guess. Of course there is, it's a fucking game, but you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. So I don't know how they're going to handle a game that actually has combat, that actually has something more than what they're used to creating. Like, I hope to fucking God they're not like, let's just strip that out. That's dated. And I'd be like, because that would just fucking send me over the goddamn cliff. So I don't know how they're going to go with anything besides the walking parts of that game, but we'll just, I guess, have to fucking wait and see. Like, overall, my feelings of this whole Silent Hill 2 remake is I don't think it fucking should happen in the first place. It should just be re-released on it, leave it as it is. You know, it's, don't go changing things and shit like that just because you think it would be better for modern systems or modern players. Like, people love playing old games. Like, it's fucking, it's why, you know, like all these old school, you know, triple packs and bundles and shit of like remastered games were released and fucking sold hotcakes and stuff, because people do love playing older kind of games. But then when you throw in the fact that Bloober Team is going to be remaking it, and as I said, my personal opinion, I think that's probably the worst choice I could ever think of. Like, be better off giving it to fucking like Rockstar or DICE, in my opinion. They'd handle it better than Bloober Team. So I just hope these rumors, like, I trust Dusk Golem, but I really hope these aren't fucking true, this one, because it would break my fucking heart to see this happen. Ugh. So the next one, as I mentioned before, is that smaller Silent Hill game. It's going to apparently consist of episodes, and each episode will cover one short story. The leaks on this one, the info isn't too, there's not too much really. There is a publisher that's been mentioned, Annapurna, I think it's pronounced, Interactive. They are the publisher behind games such as The Outer Wilds, but there's no hint on who the developer is. And even this publisher may not be the one actually working on it, because this information comes from other sources, basically news outlets contacting people to see if there's any validity to any of these claims. And this publisher may not be the actual ones who are, you know, got the project, because they were part of a discussion meeting where, you know, publishers pitched their ideas for this, but there's no info saying that their project got greenlit, so it's a bit up in the air who's actually going to be doing it. But I kind of fuck with this idea a little bit. I know I just went the whole fucking, I hate walking sims and all that kind of shit like that, but it's going to sound a bit hypocritical, but I kind of like the idea of these Silent Hill short stories just focusing on the narrative, kind of like shit you see from, you know, Telltale's The Walking Dead or Until Dawn and those kind of games, where it's more like an interactive movie gameplay thing. That could be interesting, you know, like we have each episode could be a few hours long, tell a really cool, engaging story, and we move on to the next one. Like, I honestly see that as a kind of cool idea, because, you know, Silent Hill is a lot of things, but story is probably the biggest one. And a game that's really hammering that home and focusing on that and telling interesting stories could be kind of cool. Now, it depends on which route it takes it. It could take the Silent Hill 2 route of, you know, Silent Hill tapping into your fucking regrets, fears, anxieties, feelings, whatever the hell, and manifesting that into the world, and, you know, them having to confront that shit. Or it could go Silent Hill 1, 3, 4, all that kind of shit with the cult instead. It depends though, really. I feel like this would work more for a Silent Hill 2 kind of approach than the other Silent Hill games, but I'm not too sure. You know, there could even be an overarching story with the cult, and each of these people are involved. So there's different avenues, and definitely be interesting to see how this one goes. I'm not against the idea. You know, I love the stories of Silent Hill, and I would love to see more stories told within Silent Hill. So I'm kind of keen on this one. The last and the biggest leaks in terms of information is the new Silent Hill game. Again, these came from Dust Golem, but the reason why I'm mentioning that is that he's attached several images that have apparently leaked from the project, and the fact they were hit with a DMCA after he published them, and he had to go publish them on Reddit for anyone to see, kind of gives me the idea that, yeah, this sounds kind of real, because why the fuck would you DMCA something if it has nothing to do with a project you're working on? So yeah, I'm kind of thinking that maybe this is legit too. Dust Golem said that these images come from the project in about 2020, so it could look a lot different now, so keep that in mind when we're talking about it. These are about 2 years old. And the last thing that he mentioned as well was just several names and words that he said, like, you know, that are important to this project. Anita and Maya, and SMS messages. The SMS messages sounds kind of interesting, because that sounds like what PT, you know, I don't know if you remember this, but at the time of PT, a couple of months, like a month or a year after, you know, all that debacle happened, there was information about how this new Silent Hills that was cancelled, whatever the fuck it was, would tap into your phone and like send you messages and all that kind of shit to really fuck with you outside of the game. And yeah, that sounds kind of fucking cool if they're going to incorporate that into this new Silent Hill. We have no idea who's working on the project, but Video Game Chronicle reported last year that a Japanese studio is working on it. We just have no fucking idea who it is. This game is codenamed Sakura. What apparently it's going to be is a PT style teaser game that's going to be released for free digitally, and it's going to build anticipation for the larger projects. So that's where I was like, this one sounds a bit odd, because the new Silent Hill may not be what we think it is, like a full game. It may just be this playable teaser kind of thing that's going to promote the other Silent Hill games that we've talked about, such as the SH2 remake and the short stories one. Or this could be a full project itself, and the teaser is meant to build that up. I'm not 100% sure. Konami knows the success of PT and how much buzz that got and everything like that. Kind of makes sense that they would want to try to recapture that. Now, the images in question that we're talking about, if you're going to hear clicking, that's me clicking the images, and I'm going to put them on screen. There's 7, and I just want to say the first one here is of a woman. I'm assuming we can go with, I don't know who the fucking name is. And this is cringe as fuck. It looks like she's Jared Leto's Joker with all this bullshit on her fucking face. I hate myself. It just, like, it's this whole fucking, look at me, I'm so traumatized, I'm so sad, horror is so traumatizing and sad, aren't I sad and broken? Horror games, you know, every protagonist is broken, we're all broken, I hate myself. Like, no fucking subtlety whatsoever. Yeah, I don't fuck with this at all. And as we go through these photos, there's going to be a bit of a consistent theme of subtlety that hits you like a fucking brick. Yeah, it gets worse with the fucking I'm so broken shit. And I'm not wrong. It looks like Jared Leto's Joker. That's why I put it in the fucking thumbnail if I did, because it just reminds me of that shit, and how fucking, and I'm going to say this a lot probably, how on the goddamn nose it is about I'm so broken and all that stuff. The second image we've got here is a hallway with what looks like to be some spooky monster made out of flowers, wearing like a dress or a jumper. And there's post-it notes all over this hallway as well. Kind of give, you know, the same idea as the first image we just saw, because the text there was a post-it note as well. Yeah, I love the look of this. I think this looks fucking amazing. This hallway of post-it notes looks kind of great, and I love this design of this, whatever this fucking creature thing is. But again, it all depends on the subtlety and having your shit just blasted all over the walls and ceiling of how broken you are. Yeah, it kind of doesn't I don't fuck with that. I really like a bit of subtlety, but who knows, this could be way later in the game once we know more, once we know less. We'll just have to see it was implemented. But overall, cool looking pic. This one here is of a dirty fucking house, which just looks like Resident Evil 7. Looks like the Baker Estate, or whatever the fuck it's called. Now, judging by some later photos that we'll talk about, I'm assuming this is the house that the woman with the I hate myself on her face grew up in. I think this is her place. It's obviously abandoned and shit like that, so spooky, 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 but gorgeous. Like these screenshots, fucking visually gorgeous. So the next one as well is another one of a bedroom with a couple of diaries on there and a load of junk and shit everywhere. Again, not much to really say with this one. Looks kind of cool. The next photo we've got here is of a note. Now, I've actually found someone put it through Google Translate because it's all in Japanese. So what I'll do is I'll read it out loud for you and I'll throw the text on the screen as well. Of course, this won't be 100% accurate because it's fucking Google Translate, but I don't speak Japanese. I don't speak Japanese, so. Alright, so the post-it note, the note says July 24th, 2020, Mr. Krista Newman. Next line, authorities have requested repeat interviews, but you do not respond at all. We consider this to be unwilling to resolve the issue and will protect your two children at the behest of a federal court officer in violation of Article 1631-2 of the Civil Code. If you have an objection, please apply it to the authorities and promptly respond to the interview. If you do not comply, it will be considered as abandonment of childcare and temporary protection measures will be taken in accordance with the regulations of the authorities. In that case, no objection will be accepted. So we're getting the idea that now with the fucking I hate myself stuff and all the, you know, trauma shit, and now with this note talking about a father who possibly abused two kids. We don't know what type of abuse, but all we know is that these two children were taken away from their father. And the fact that this note was found at this house kind of also gives the idea that this is that chick's home that she grew up in. Again, it's very dangerous, and I'll get into that more later, because this next picture kind of gives a bit more validity to what I think they're talking about in terms of the child's safety. The next photo is again of this post-it note hallway thing and that fucking freaky looking flower monster, but this one we get a much clearer idea of what the post-it note looks like. And you know, there's one saying pervert, fat bitch, creep. I can't really make out a lot of the others. You're depressing. That's a fun one. You've never something or other. Idiot. But with the pervert one, we're kind of getting the idea that maybe the father molested the two kids, or at least the daughter, and I'm assuming the daughter is the character we're playing as. And all these post-it notes obviously are probably the thoughts that go through the victim's head. How some victims can really feel guilty for the trauma that they've suffered, even though they had nothing to do with it. That guilt from that assault and shame and all that stuff can really be internalized and make the person hate themselves for something that they didn't do. Whether or not this is going to be handled well is the question, isn't it? Because this is some fucking really touchy subject matter, and I know Silent Hill isn't afraid to go through those things, like with Angela in Silent Hill 2, and I won't go into spoilers obviously because I don't know if anyone of you guys have played Silent Hill 2. I'm hoping so, considering watching this channel and watching this video. The game has gone through that route before, and Silent Hill 2 in my opinion handled it extremely well. But in terms of this, you know, new game and this new character, I really, really, really hope this is handled with care, because this isn't something to be made light of. And some horror is very notorious for using trauma or mental illness or abuse as some sort of weird thing that they need to include to be like, look how fucked up this is, look how fucked up I am, look how fucked up you are. And they're not handled with care. It's basically becomes the character. They're not a person, they are their trauma. That kind of shit I really don't like. And I know a lot of horror movies and games and stuff have really pushed forward the envelope, again, Silent Hill 2, of how to handle that. But it is a fucking fine line. It needs to be handled with the utmost care and respect. And also, if possible, talk to people who have experienced these traumas to get an idea of how that makes them feel. Because if it isn't handled with care, and if it's just, oh look, this happened to me, isn't that disgusting? Look how fucked up it is that happened to her. We should really look how fucked up it is. Look at everything that's fucked up happening because of all that stuff that happened to her in her past. Isn't it so fucked up? It's just, you need to handle that shit with care. If you're going to include it, there is a responsibility to handle it with care. So that part of this one has got me a little bit worried to see how it's going to handle it. And the last photo we've got is what presumably is the main character. Again, I'm not sure entirely if it's the same woman as the one at the first image. Sorry for all the clicking, but it kind of looks like her considering the eyebrows and face and hair and shit like that. And yeah, great model. Graphically looks really, really fucking good. And she's got the whole, dead in the eyes kind of thing, I guess. Yeah, looks kind of cool. I mean, graphically this game looks like it's going to be a fucking powerhouse considering all the images we've got. But how this will actually materialize is the interesting thing, and whether or not this is actually going to be a full project or if it's just going to be the teaser that they're apparently working on. I do hope we get a new Silent Hill. I do want to see this franchise revisited, but especially with this game in particular, they really need to handle that subject matter with care, because it's not something to fuck around with, really. Like, you need to be really, really respectful. So overall, look, I'm not too fucking chuffed on these leaks. If I were to rate them all, I would put the smaller Silent Hill episodic short stories thing as number one I'm most keen for. Number two would be that new Silent Hill, but with a bit of hesitancy. Again, we don't know who's working on it, so we don't know their previous track record, so we have nothing to kind of go off. But visually, it looks amazing. Graphically, and looks like fucking photos basically, but there's clearly going to be some emphasis on abuse of a child and trauma, so that's where we got to be. I'm a bit hesitant. I'm a bit worried that they're not going to handle it with care. And the one I'm least interested in, down the bottom of a fucking barrel, like that pit out of Berserk, the very bottom, we got Bloober Team remaking Silent Hill 2, or Bloober Team working on anything Silent Hill related, because I just think this is a fucking stupid idea. I know why they're goddamn doing it, but it's a fucking stupid idea, and I think what really needs to be done is just port all the games onto newer systems like they did with Silent Hill 4 recently on the PC. Just do that shit for the older games, and let everyone relive the fucking amazing Silent Hill quadrilogy or fiveology or whatever the fuck, whichever one you eventually go to say that's the point when the series died, up to that one. Yeah, I just think that remaking Silent Hill 2 and also changing it is disrespectful to the original team, and to the fans themselves, and like the audacity to think that you could fucking improve Silent Hill 2 in any way, shape or form. God, I'm fucking up my words hardcore today. Any way, shape or form is honestly fucking just dumb. But look, at the end of the day, my overall opinions on Silent Hill and all these new projects is that I'm okay with the series just not coming back. Like, re-release the games and all that kind of stuff, I'm fucking 100% keen for that. But Silent Hill means a lot to me, and it means a lot to a lot of other people. And, I've seen some people say online that, Silent Hill fans will just bitch about anything. They'll play them, they'll beg for a new game, and then they get it and be like, shit, and they'll be like, fuck, I hate you. Why did you do that? And it's like, Silent Hill fans do want new Silent Hill. Of course they do. We all want new things in franchises that we love. But they also want quality. They want good, because we've been burnt so many fucking times by Konami mainly not understanding why people love Silent Hill and what makes Silent Hill special. They don't have no fucking idea, because a prime example obviously is a pachinko machine, but the fact that even thinking about remaking Silent Hill 2 just fucking sets it in stone that Konami has absolutely no fucking idea why people love Silent Hill. And so we're not being picky, we're not being pains in the asses, we're not being fucking dickheads and shit like that. We just want the franchise to be treated with respect. We want the franchise to receive quality entries. Like, the fact that this franchise, to this day, 2022, we haven't had a fucking new game in what? We haven't had anything new Silent Hill since PT, and that was in 2014. And if you want to go even further back and say when the last time we actually got a Silent Hill game, like a proper one, Downpour was in 2012. what was that fucking stupid goddamn dungeon crawler Silent Hill game? I've got it. I own it. Wait, it's on my shelf. Book of Memories. Book of Memories. That's what it's called. Book of Memories. Fuck me dead. I'm an absolute moron. That was in 2012. So the latest Silent Hill game, like a proper Silent Hill game we got, was in 2012. 10 fucking years ago. This franchise has lived on and continues 10 years after the last entry, and people still adore it. It still trends on Twitter all the fucking time. People are always sharing fan art, talking about the stories, the games they love, ranking them. Like, it's a beautiful community, and it gets a lot of fucking shit from people, and it's so stupid because of some dumb outliers that bring the whole community down. But the Silent Hill community is really fucking cool, and they just love this franchise to death, and I'm exactly the same. And that's why a lot of people have been criticizing these leaks, because what we're seeing here, besides maybe the smaller Silent Hill games, is just a complete lack of understanding about why Silent Hill is so loved by people. And yeah, I'm worried. I would much rather the franchise just die and we get remasters of the new games, but not fucking remakes, and just give them a nice coat of paint and bring them onto new systems and make sure they work. And like, the fucked up thing is, of course I'm gonna play every single fucking one of these and buy every single one of these because I love Silent Hill, and I hate that, you know, like, but these are all just leaks. There's fuck all information. We don't exactly know everything about all of them, so we have to take everything with a grain of salt. We have to keep our expectations low. We can't form too many opinions on information that we don't have. But at the end of the day, I think everyone here can agree with me is that we just want a good Silent Hill game. We want to capture that feeling we did when we first played Silent Hill. And I don't think that's too much to ask, really. But Konami's track record isn't good, so we'll just have to wait and see. Now, I'd love to know what you guys think as well of each of these, and go ahead and rank them. I want to know your rankings and why you've ranked them in that way. As I said, mine is number 1 is those Silent Hill short stories, number 2 is the new one, the playable teaser thingy, and way down the bottom is Bloober Team remaking Silent Hill 2. And this video has been going on for fucking long enough. I've been ranting long enough, and this is the second time I've recorded it, so I think this is where I'm going to end it. But let me know if this kind of unscripted kind of thoughts thing is something you guys like. And yeah, I might do it on other kind of topics like this. I'm not going to be doing this shit all the time, but I thought, considering it's Silent Hill and considering how many leaks we got, I thought it was something worth talking about and putting on the channel. Next video is going to be a cancelled horror games one. Put a little tease, a little hint on the community tab and on Twitter a while back. It's coming along. It's going to be the longest one I've ever made. It is fucking massive, but it's going to be hella interesting. And then after that, we've got a couple of videos, and then we're on to Vampire Rain review. Dear God. And thank you everyone for the 5,000 subscribers. Like, holy shit, I'm so fucking happy. Like, it's amazing. I never thought this would happen, and I'm just blown away by this community that we have here. And you know, I appreciate every single one of you who've taken the time just to watch my videos or comment or fucking subscribe or anything like that. I know I haven't uploaded a lot lately, and I've been going through a lot of fucking shit, especially with my health, and your guys' support, and it has really helped me get through it. It's really made me feel happiness, which is something I've been struggling to feel because of all this shit going on. But anyway, just thank you so much for the 5k subs. I'm so fucking happy, and yeah, I love you all, and let me know what you think about all this shit in the comments. And last but not least, you better stay spooky. Alright, bye.